The night was calm in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, the only sounds those of nocturnal creatures rustling in the underbrush and the occasional hoot of an owl. Suddenly, the tranquility was shattered by a streak of light tearing across the sky, crashing into the forest with a deafening roar. Trees splintered and the ground shook as the object skidded to a halt, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. A thick plume of smoke rose into the air, marking the crash site. Within the wreckage, a figure stirred. Lyra, a girl from the distant planet of Elysia, slowly emerged from the remains of her spaceship. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight, and her eyes, glowing with an otherworldly blue hue, reflected the chaos around her. She was dazed and disoriented, struggling to comprehend what had happened. The chains around her wrists and ankles clinked ominously as she moved, a stark reminder of her imprisonment. Lyra had been a prisoner on her own ship, captured by her companions during a violent mutiny. They had planned to sell her to a rival faction for the secrets she held within her genetic code, secrets that could alter the balance of power on Elysia. In the ensuing chaos, the ship malfunctioned and was sent hurtling towards Earth. Her captors, in their haste to escape, had left her behind, bound in chains and abandoned to her fate. As she stumbled through the forest, the unfamiliar surroundings overwhelmed her senses. The scents of pine and earth were foreign, and the sounds of the forest were unlike anything she had ever heard. Weak and exhausted, she found a small clearing and collapsed, her energy completely depleted. The hours passed slowly, the stars wheeling overhead as dawn began to break. In the early morning light, a young man named Alex was conducting his usual wildlife survey. A dedicated wildlife researcher, he spent most of his days exploring the forest, documenting the habits and habitats of the local fauna. As he navigated the underbrush, he noticed something unusual in the distance, a plume of smoke rising above the treetops. Curiosity piqued, he made his way towards it. When he reached the clearing, he froze in shock. Before him lay a girl, clearly not human. Her silver skin glinted in the sunlight, and the chains around her limbs made her plight obvious. She appeared unconscious, and Alex's first instinct was to help her. Gathering his courage, he approached cautiously, aware that he was stepping into the unknown. He gently lifted Lyra, surprised by how light she was, and carried her back to his cabin, hidden deep within the woods. He laid her on his bed, covering her with a blanket, and set about examining her chains. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, made of a strange, unbreakable material. He would need time to understand how to remove them. Lyra awoke to the sound of birds chirping and the smell of something cooking. Her vision was blurry, but she soon realized she was in a small, rustic cabin. Panic surged through her as she recalled her situation. She struggled against her chains, but they held firm. Alex entered the room carrying a tray of food. He noticed her agitation and spoke softly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." He placed the tray down and showed his empty hands as a sign of peace. Lyra's fear slowly subsided, replaced by cautious curiosity. She had never encountered a human before. Alex, sensing her unease, tried to communicate using gestures and simple words. It took time, but Lyra began to understand. She mimicked his actions, and soon they established a rudimentary form of communication. Alex introduced himself, pointing to his chest and saying, "Alex." Lyra, after a moment of hesitation, pointed to herself and said, "Lyra." Over the next few days, Alex worked tirelessly to understand the alien technology of the chains. He studied them, using his knowledge of mechanics and engineering. Lyra watched him intently, amazed by his determination and kindness. She realized that not all beings were cruel like her former companions. One evening, after many failed attempts, Alex finally managed to unlock the chains. Lyra was free. Tears of gratitude welled up in her eyes as she embraced Alex, the first person to show her true kindness. In that moment, a bond of trust and friendship was forged between them. As they sat together in the fading light, Lyra pointed to the sky, then at the wreckage of her ship. She needed to find a way home, but first, she needed to regain her strength. Alex nodded, understanding the enormity of the task ahead. Together, they would face the challenges that lay ahead, united by a bond that transcended the vast distances between their worlds. Lyra awoke to the sound of birds chirping and the soft rustling of leaves outside the cabin. She was more alert now, her senses sharpening as she acclimated to her new environment. The chains that had bound her were gone, replaced by a sense of cautious freedom. As she sat up, she noticed Alex sitting nearby, working on a small electronic device with intense concentration. Alex glanced up and smiled. "Good morning, Lyra," he said, his voice gentle and reassuring. He set the device aside and walked over to her, offering a plate of food. "I thought you might be hungry." Lyra took the plate hesitantly, her eyes scanning the simple meal of fruits and bread. She nodded in thanks, her movements still slow and wary. As she ate, Alex tried to engage her in conversation, using simple words and gestures to bridge the language gap. It was a slow process, but Lyra was a quick learner, and each day their communication improved. Over the next few days, Alex continued his work on understanding the alien technology. The chains had been a puzzle, but now his focus shifted to the remains of Lyra's ship. He made frequent trips to the crash site, bringing back various components and studying them in his makeshift lab. Lyra often accompanied him, offering what assistance she could and learning more about Earth's flora and fauna. One afternoon, as they were examining a particularly complex piece of machinery, Lyra noticed a small, embedded crystal that pulsed with a faint blue light. She pointed it out to Alex, her expression urgent. "Alicia," she said, indicating the crystal. "Communication." Alex's eyes widened in realization. "This might be the key to contacting your people," he said, carefully extracting the crystal. He examined it closely, trying to understand its function. "If we can activate this, we might be able to send a signal." Together, they worked on integrating the crystal with Alex's equipment. It was a challenging task, but their combined efforts paid off. After several hours of meticulous adjustments, the crystal began to glow brighter, emitting a steady hum. Lyra's eyes lit up with hope as she watched the device come to life. "Now," Alex said, stepping back, "we need to find a way to boost the signal. This forest might block the transmission." Lyra nodded, understanding the need for higher ground. She pointed towards a nearby mountain peak that loomed above the treetops. "There," she said. "High place." Alex agreed, and the next morning they set out for the mountain. The journey was arduous, the terrain rugged and challenging. Lyra's alien physiology, still recovering from the crash, made the climb difficult, but Alex's presence and support kept her going. They moved in tandem, their bond growing stronger with each shared effort and wordless understanding. As they climbed, Alex took the opportunity to teach Lyra more about Earth. He pointed out different plants, explaining their uses and dangers, and told her stories about the stars and constellations visible at night. Lyra listened intently, fascinated by the richness of this new world. In turn, she shared fragments of her own knowledge, describing the wonders of Alicia and the advanced technologies her people had developed. By the time they reached the summit, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the landscape. They set up the communication device, carefully positioning the crystal to maximize its range. Alex connected the final wires, and with a deep breath, activated the transmitter. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal emitted a bright beam of light, projecting a holographic interface. Lyra's fingers flew over the controls, inputting a series of commands. A faint signal crackled through the device, and after a few moments, a voice spoke in the melodic language of Alicia. "Lyra?" the voice asked, filled with astonishment and relief. "Is that you?" Tears welled up in Lyra's eyes as she responded. "Yes, it's me. I need help. My ship crashed on a planet called Earth." The voice on the other end assured her that a rescue team would be dispatched immediately. Lyra thanked them and signed off, her heart racing with a mix of relief and anticipation. She turned to Alex, who had been watching the exchange with a mixture of awe and curiosity. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." Alex smiled, his own eyes misty. "I'm just glad I could help," he replied. "But it's not over yet. We still need to stay safe until your people arrive." They spent the night on the mountaintop, huddled together for warmth. As they lay under the stars, Lyra felt a deep sense of gratitude for this human who had shown her kindness and bravery. She knew their time together was limited, but the bond they had forged would endure. In the morning, they began their descent, taking a different route to avoid detection by any potential threats. As they neared the forest floor, Lyra's keen senses detected movement in the distance. Her former captors had returned, their ship hovering ominously above the treetops. Alex and Lyra quickly formulated a plan. Using the knowledge they had gained of the forest, they set traps and prepared defenses. They knew they were outnumbered, but they were determined to fight for their survival and the chance for Lyra to return home. As the captors closed in, the battle began. Lyra's regained strength and abilities, combined with Alex's ingenuity and resourcefulness, gave them a fighting chance. They moved as one, their trust and synergy allowing them to outmaneuver their enemies. Just when it seemed they were about to be overwhelmed, a fleet of Elysian ships appeared on the horizon, responding to Lyra's distress signal. The tide of battle turned swiftly, and Lyra's captors were apprehended. Lyra stood victorious, with Alex by her side. The Elysian commander approached, offering Lyra safe passage home. She turned to Alex, knowing this might be their last moment together. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You saved me." Alex smiled. "You showed me a universe beyond my wildest dreams. Take care, Lyra." With a heavy heart, Lyra boarded the ship, her eyes lingering on Alex until the last moment. As the vessel ascended, she vowed never to forget the human who freed her from chains and became her friend. Back on Elysia, Lyra shared her story, advocating for peace and cooperation between their worlds. The bond she formed with Alex became a symbol of hope, proving that even in the darkest of times, kindness and courage could light the way. Lyra's heart pounded as the Elysian ship ascended, lifting her away from the Earth's surface. She pressed her hand against the viewport, watching the forest shrink beneath her. Her thoughts lingered on Alex, the human who had shown her unimaginable kindness and bravery. She knew this wasn't the end. It was a new beginning, one that would bridge two worlds. The ship's interior was a stark contrast to the rustic forest she had just left. Sleek silver walls lined with advanced technology hummed softly. Elysian crew members moved with purpose, their blue-tinted skin and glowing eyes reflecting their advanced civilization. Lyra felt a mix of relief and sorrow. She was going home, but she was leaving behind someone who had become a dear friend. The Elysian commander, a tall figure with a calm demeanor, approached her. "Lyra," he said gently, "we've received your message and apprehended your captors. You're safe now." Lyra nodded, her gratitude evident. "Thank you, Commander, but there's more at stake. We must prevent the secrets of our genetics from being exploited. I need to return to Elysia and ensure this knowledge is protected." The commander nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We will take every measure to secure this information. For now, rest. You've been through a lot." As Lyra settled into her quarters, she couldn't help but think of Alex. She hoped he was safe. The bond they had formed was something she never expected, and it filled her with hope for the future. The journey to Elysia took several days. During this time, Lyra briefed the crew on her experience and the details of the mutiny. She emphasized the importance of peaceful coexistence and the potential alliance with Earth. The crew listened intently, aware of the potential ramifications. Upon arrival, Elysia's capital city welcomed Lyra with open arms. The towering crystal spires and lush greenery of her home planet felt both familiar and foreign after her ordeal. She was greeted by the Council of Elders, wise and ancient beings who governed Elysia with a blend of intellect and compassion. Lyra stood before them recounting her journey and the betrayal she had faced. She spoke of Alex and the humans, highlighting their capacity for kindness and cooperation. The council listened, their expressions thoughtful. "We must secure our knowledge and ensure it is used for the benefit of all, not for power or control," Lyra concluded. "And we must consider reaching out to Earth. There is much we can learn from each other." The eldest of the council, Elder Thalos, nodded slowly. "Your words resonate with wisdom, Lyra. We will take measures to protect our genetic secrets. As for Earth, we must proceed with caution, but also with hope. Perhaps this is the beginning of a new era." With the Council's support, Lyra set to work on securing the genetic information. Advanced encryption and protective measures were implemented, ensuring that only those with the Council's approval could access the data. Meanwhile, the idea of an alliance with Earth began to take shape. Lyra couldn't forget about Alex. She crafted a message, hoping to reach him and let him know she was safe. Using the advanced communication systems, she sent a transmission to Earth, directed to Alex's location in the forest. Back on Earth, Alex had returned to his cabin, his thoughts consumed by the events of the past weeks. The forest felt different now, charged with the memory of Lyra and their shared experiences. One evening, as he was tending to his equipment, a strange beeping sound emanated from one of the alien devices he had kept. Curious, he activated the device. A holographic image of Lyra appeared, her face illuminated with relief and joy. "Alex," she began, "I wanted to let you know that I'm safe and back on Elysia. Your kindness and bravery have inspired a change here. We are considering an alliance with Earth, and it's because of you." Alex's heart swelled with emotion. "Lyra, I'm glad to hear you're safe. You've shown me a universe beyond my imagination. If there's ever a way for us to meet again, I would welcome it." Lyra smiled, her image flickering slightly. "I hope so too, Alex. Until then, take care. And thank you, my friend." The transmission ended, but the connection between their worlds remained. Lyra's efforts led to the establishment of a small delegation on Earth, aiming to learn more about human culture and technology. Alex became a key liaison, his knowledge and experience invaluable. Years passed, and the bond between Elysia and Earth grew stronger. Lyra and Alex's friendship became a symbol of hope and cooperation, showing that even in the vast expanse of the universe, kindness and courage could bring worlds together. Lyra often looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere on Earth, Alex was looking up too. Their paths had crossed in the most unexpected way, and though they were worlds apart, their friendship bridged the distance, lighting the way for a brighter future for both their peoples.